Hello, 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 Pixel Poppers. It's me, Jordan, again, and you've been on this journey with me. I'm a little sad. It's like the second to last talk. I've been having so much fun. I do not want this event to end, but, well, that's so sweet. I wasn't expecting a compliment just now. But the show must go on. So we have Why People of Color Burn Out Quicker Despite Having More Melanin by Bahiyya. Bahiyya Khan is a multiple award-winning game designer and writer, most notable for her IGF-winning game After Hours, which I've played and is amazing. Writing bios makes her anxious, because what do you include anyway? Like, does anyone care that she likes pop-punk music or is unable to live past 2009? Well, with that, Bahiyya Khan.
Fine. Hello. Oh, whoa. Ew. You know, like when you listen to voice recordings of your voice being recorded, and it just sounds awful? That's what it sounds like for me. So if you think you're having a bad time, imagine how I feel. Okay, cool. So this is my talk on why people of color burn out quicker despite having more melanin. And it's more specific to like people of color from third world countries, because I'm from South Africa, so I can't really speak on like the American or more kind of Western experience that people of color go through. Although obviously it's still, you know, really hectic. But yeah, let's get into it. It's a talk by me. Yeah, some of you might know me as Gerard Way, like the lead singer of My Chemical Romance, and also I also make video games and go by the name of Bahiyya when I do that. Okay, so just before I get into this talk, I want to speak a bit about like some of the content that will be coming into it. I mentioned the first part already about how this is like very specific to me, and also it's obviously not meant to depict everybody's experiences from South Africa. Just a few things about me before I get into it. I live in the ghetto in South Africa, so there are people of color that live in nicer areas. They do experience like, you know, their own thing, but it's not something I experience. So yeah, just please bear that in mind. And then also there'll be like things on sexual assault and suicidal ideation and violence, because unfortunately that's a reality. And you will feel sad at some points, probably. When I was just thinking about this talk earlier, while I was fucking at my booth, I started crying, and because I have pink eyeshadow, I didn't realize it like all dripped down the one side of my face. And I went to go and pee now, and I was like, why didn't anyone tell me this is how my face looks? So I don't know if you can still see it's a bit pink, because I was like trying to wipe it all off. Shit, I only have 20 minutes. Okay. So who am I, aside from, you know, being the lead singer of a mid-2000s emo band? I'm Muslim, a woman, and I'm from South Africa. I also make video games. I'm in between a lot of things, like my masters, jobs, days. I write, but that also... not really. I mean, like I used to, it's like one of those things that you do, you know, throughout your life, and you just can't like part with that label, even though you haven't engaged with it in a while. It's just like as I've gotten older and become more self-aware and like mindful of myself as a person, writing has become one of those things that's like super difficult, because it just reminds me of being alive, which is a fucking disaster. Yeah. And then I also put all these other things in, because I hate it when you go to talks and it's just all like games, you know, even though this is a games conference, but like, ew. So yeah, all of those other things about me, especially the last part, screaming all day and night. Yeah, wonderful to live with. Okay, so some background into like my country and some of the things that have happened there and to an extent still exist today is that I don't know how many of you know about apartheid. Does anybody know about that? And you just like raise your hand so I know. Okay, that's good. And some of you that don't know, like you'll be educated a little bit on it. I'm not going to be going into like too much detail because it's not a talk on apartheid, but just like the system that did exist and how it still affects us currently. But basically, so South Africa got colonized like in 1652, I think. That's when like Jan van Riebeeck came, a Dutch white man, and then did all bad things. And then like in 1940 or 50 something, that's when like apartheid became a more kind of institutionalized form of racial segregation, and it's when the like white minority party got voted into power by white people, and yeah, it's like a form of slavery. It was just really, really bad, where people of color were treated really, really poorly and forcefully removed from their homes and like denied access to like really, really basic human rights and decency, and just had their personhood completely ripped away from them. So that ties into my next point about the Group Areas Act. Basically what that is, aside from the definition there about coloreds, blacks, and Indians being forcibly removed from areas classified for white occupation. So before I go into that, do you guys know what colored people are? And I don't mean in like the American sort of sense, I mean in the South African sense. Okay, so it's a racial group in South Africa. It's to do with like being mixed race, but when there's sort of black within that mix. So that's a racial group in South Africa. And my mom is colored, and like her family and stuff, but when this happened, her dad decided to re-register the whole family as Indian, because he felt that if they were registered as Indian, they would be treated a bit better than they would as colored people. So that's something that like really, really affected her and kind of got passed down onto us, because having to like change such a big thing about yourself, you know, especially when you've loved sort of as this identity, it just like affected her pretty badly. And then my dad, his mom is Indian, but his dad is colored, but he also got changed into being Indian. And what they did is they sent them to like this Indian area in South Africa, and that's Lenasia. So that's where I stay at the moment, and a lot of people, like black people, got sent to an area called Soweto and other places, and then yeah, just like a bunch of racial groups got pushed out into the margin, super far away from the city, and to an extent South Africa still exists like that today. So I have to travel quite a while to like get to university and back, because I'm living in like this sort of like fringe community. Okay, so it was formed, like I mentioned, because of the Group Areas Act, and then I spoke about the race changing and all of that. Oh, my parents and punk music. Oh yeah, so naturally, both of my parents got like super, super messed up from apartheid, because they like spent 30 years of their lives living under this rule, because it ended very recently, like a year before I was born, so like 24, 25 years ago. So most of the people that lived through it are still alive, and like are super affected by it. And obviously like, so we meant to be like the born free generation, but we still like experience the legacy of that, because just because like something ends on paper doesn't mean it ends, you know. And then about that whole like punk music thing, I don't know why I put that in there. Probably my dad likes punk music. So, okay. Oh, I do remember why. He started listening to it and like playing guitar and all of these things, because he was so like pissed off and angry as a teenager that like, this is your race, this is what you do, you don't come to the school. He was like 17 and removed from the place he'd grown up in his whole life, and then sent to Lenasia. So everybody was just like really, really angry, and he's still like a super angry person. He hates like all races. He hates himself, and he hates like his like mixed raceness sort of thing. He hates all other races. He just like hates people, and he hates that concept because of how it sort of like colored his entire life. And then how, like I was speaking about the legacy of apartheid and how it still exists, is that, so where I stay, there's only people of color. It was formerly like an Indian area, but now it's kind of equally divided between black, Indian, and colored people. It's still like the bar of excellence is still white people and like sort of white everything. Like I was dating this white boy, and when my friends found out, like when I told them, and even when I told my mom, it was like, oh wow, okay. And it was just like super weird because that's sort of like, oh, you know, you have a white boyfriend now. And even like me being fair-skinned, it's more kind of like revered in my community. Because like most people there are just different shades of brown. And I also like, my parents are brown, but I'm not that brown. But yeah, so like I experienced sort of like favoritism in a way, you know, compared to other people, which is like absolutely horrifying. But yeah, just the concept of a ghetto is something I also wanted to speak on. So according to Oxford Dictionary, it's a part of a city, especially a slum area, occupied by a minority group or groups. I never thought of the place that I grew up in as a ghetto until I went to university, because I went to university like in the city, and I'm staying in this like part that's not in like the main city, and it's all I knew growing up. And I feel like because I didn't know anything else, how could I have known that that wasn't normal? You know, I didn't think it was strange that like my friends were all on drugs and like just like a lot of bad things were happening, and like our responses to a lot of things, I just thought it was normal. I just thought that levels of violence and deaths were normal, but obviously it's not. So, oh shit, here we go. Yeah, so I was speaking about the concept of a ghetto, and I'm kind of going to be jumping between these 2 points, so just try and follow along if you can. I feel like when people speak about a ghetto, they don't speak about the positives of it. It's kind of just like reduced into this really scary thing that nobody wants to speak about or engage with or anything like that. And like, as someone that comes from that place, I feel like there's like this joke I tell people who aren't, it's not a joke, I don't know why I call it that, but I feel like all of us have this like dust on us, and I call it the dust of poverty and trauma, because I feel like I can see it, you know, like everybody just has like large traumatized eyes. I don't know. It's just something that I feel like I can see all the time. But yeah, some things that I've experienced there, like in my teenage years, which is insane. I feel like it was so much of trauma that people in their lives don't even experience that. And this all happened to me as a teenager. And it's something that I still carry with, like, right up until today. The reason that I'm speaking about all of this is because I just want you to know how all of these things like eat away at us, and why being a game designer and being in this like industry feels like, what the fuck am I actually doing? Like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. Like, I'm wasting my parents' time. I'm wasting my time. What am I doing? Yeah, I hope what I'm saying is like making sense. Anyway, yeah, I spoke a bit about like my friends being on drugs and things like that. And my mom's like super strict with raising us in terms of like not being allowed to like sleep over at people, and not like being allowed to go to certain areas within our community. And that was really annoying growing up, because it's like everybody else is doing that, so why are you so boring? But only when I like got older did I realize it's because, you know, it was like dangerous and all of these things. And something that I also didn't realize is how many people were being like raped in my community. And there's like a lot of Muslim people there, and Muslim people don't like to acknowledge that that happens in our community. It's very much kind of shoved under the rug, and it's just like women are meant to bear it in silence, and that's sort of like perpetuates, you know, onto the next generation. But as I got older and heard like from family members and like best friends who had been raped by their family members, or like fucking like religious leaders and stuff, it was absolutely disgusting. Like, I couldn't believe that was happening. And then also, this is something that's very difficult for me, but like death, the amount of deaths that I've experienced and seen. Half of my immediate family is dead. My dad got murdered, my stepdad, but he's like my real dad. And that's something that, like, I actually made my meditation. There was this meditation thing happening earlier this year that some people organized, but I'm not going to speak about that. But like, for that meditation game, I made it on my dad being murdered. and I saw my uncle being murdered, and my grandfather died, my cousin died, and just like all of these things happened like months after each other. And it was so bad, like I still can't believe any of those things happened at all. And like it makes me really angry at everything. It makes me pissed off at God. It makes me pissed off at the like structures in place that allowed it. And also just the fact that like a lot of the things in my community is super vampiric, like it just takes energy from you. It doesn't feel like it gives as much as it takes. But that ties into my next point about what it does give, like warmth and love and safety and community, because all of us kind of have this like collective trauma. So there's a sort of comfort in it. It sounds like sick, but there is a comfort in it. And just, that last part is just for me. I don't know if you know what sippy sherbet is, but it's just, do you know what sherbet is? Like you can smoke it. It's like sweets for kids. Okay. I have a very short time left, so I'm just going to try and go through this really quickly. This is my country at the moment, right? So I put this tweet up like a few weeks ago, and it says, I'm meant to be giving a talk in America and Canada in the upcoming weeks about why it's so hard to be a woman of color or a person of color, deaf from a third world country, and why we burn out so much quicker, and I don't know how to anymore. My people are being fucking raped and slaughtered. How do I talk about that? So there's been a massive increase in rape and murder of women recently in South Africa. Teen Vogue also did like a piece on it. I think that's the only international coverage I saw. It's been so bad. I don't even want to go into the details of just how bad like women literally being snatched off the street and being murdered in the most vile ways possible. And it's happening everywhere. It's not like targeting a specific race or class of women. It's just happening to women. And it's so bad. I feel like I can't breathe when I'm there, like with everything happening now. So working on games feels like, oh, who cares about this? You know, like people are dying. But then at the same time, it feels like, I don't know, it can be a form of activism. Like I made this game after hours. It's playable in the expo hall, and it's about sexual assault and mental illness. And like it's helped a lot of people, especially like people from my community. But it still feels like, because it's part of a medium that feels sort of like fun or like frivolous or whatever, that it's not what I'm supposed to be doing. And then I see all of these like other people in America and all of these things doing so much with their lives as developers, and I just feel like I'm not impressed by it, because it's not like my reality, if that makes sense. It's not like the trajectory that myself or people like me can follow, and there doesn't seem to be a path like that. So it feels like I'm kind of like trying to forge it alone, and that's super fucking difficult. So if anyone feels the way I feel, these are some of the things that I do to kind of make it easier for myself, and I just hope like it helps someone. The first 3 points, I don't know, seem really dumb, but I think it's super important, like breathing. Just when everything is like going absolutely awful and insane, you just like just stop, you know, and take a breath. It doesn't make everything go away, but it just sort of slows down everything for it to feel a bit more manageable. Being mindful, I feel like I've internalized a lot of really bad behaviors from my community because of how traumatized people are, that they stop thinking about how it could affect other people. So I think just sort of like checking yourself as well helps a lot in like making you feel like you're a better person and putting out good into the world, which I mean that is always helpful. And then talk. That there's like a point later on that says like laugh with your sister. I have a lot of sisters. I have 3, and we discuss like all the shit and how like fucking crazy our parents are all the time. And I feel like it's helped so much now that we're older and can speak about like that was actually not okay, or my uncle shouldn't have like been touching us like that as kids, you know, things like that. It kind of like this collective acknowledging of how awful something is. There's like a sort of catharsis in that. And then, of course, therapy, if you can afford it. I have Eat there as well, because I forget to eat, or I just don't feel like eating when I feel super awful. So I think sometimes I do things for like the future me where I know like, oh God, this bitch is gonna have a breakdown tomorrow. So let me just, put away some of this for her. I have a few seconds left, so rest good. Curate your social media experience, which means like blocking the right people, muting certain words that are triggering to you. It's very difficult for me, like being Muslim and being on Twitter, because you see some whack shit on there and it's just like really harmful. Don't force yourself to work on projects that are difficult if you don't have the resources and environment to back it up. That ties into me working on After Hours. I regret working on it, but there's a talk I did on that. Please find it on the internet. Don't compare yourself to white or Western measures of success. I think you should set your own like meters of success. Like, okay, if I'm able to do these things, like help someone, that's good enough for me, And then do things that encourage softness. I learned this from my best friend because I was like so hard and angry all the time and just like really cynical. But then, time up. But yeah, being friends with him, he's like a mushroom, just like so soft. It's just like made me a much better person. Do things that give you energy. I mentioned my space is very vampiric, so do things that give you energy. For me, it's like listening to Meg Thee Stallion and like twerking against a wall. If that helps, do it. Okay, I know time is up. Okay, thank you. How to be an ally. So if this is something that you couldn't identify with and you feel like you want to be our allies, this is what you can do. You can allow us to be more than the factors which marginalize us, so that we don't feel like we're just a statistic or reduced to these things that make our lives shit, right? And we can be people beyond our social status and stop making this industry cater for specific existences. Like I mentioned earlier, I feel like I have to forge my own path because it doesn't feel like that path exists for people like me. Give us room to be messy and real. So I feel like a lot of the time people tone down like their hoodness or whatever because you feel like, no, I need to be a specific way so people think I'm like intelligent or classy, but like fuck that, this is how I speak. Listen to us, please, 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 not just like chilling and like mulling over things that we're saying or projecting your own like experiences into what we're saying, but actually listening to what I'm saying and my experiences. That made no sense. Don't be a boring purist. I just mean like so many people think that devs need to be a specific way and have specific interests, and that's just like really problematic and harmful, because if I believe that, I wouldn't be here today, and I think a lot of people wouldn't. Remove the fees on game submissions. I don't have any money, like please. Thank God, like, so we won an IGF for After Hours earlier this year, and they removed the fee for it, and if they didn't, I would never have been able to submit my game and would never have won. Offer remote showcasing, because obviously, like, as South Africans, we can't travel to America all the time. There's like a game convention happening. Money is very good. Thanks to the people who gave me money so I could have a banner here today, and like who've just given me money generally, because it's super, super helpful. I love you. Thanks. So nice. Okay, I just had to put this in. I think that speaks for itself. Yep, and that's it. Thank you.
One more round of applause for that, because that was a lovely talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.